Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
First one is titled, "A member doesn't know the rules as well as he thinks." This story primarily take place between me and shitty neighbor who is a member of my community's HOA. Sorry if it's a bit long. As a bit of background, me and my 3 roommates moved into a housing community that is basically just a bunch of cookie-cutter townhomes. All of these homes have garages that open onto streets that wind through the community. This is important later, with your front door opening to a path on the other side of your house. There are also some free parking spots on the edge of the community where there are no houses. When we first moved in, we quickly found out that parking could be a bit of a pain during the day, especially when people had guests during the weekend. Now my roommates and I admittedly have more cars than the average family. Because we usually have to commute for work, we each have one. We try to make parking easier by using the garage, but we all have tons of sporting equipment, so we can usually only get one car in the garage. When all the parking in all the free spots is full, we just park our cars right up against the garage and leave them there during the day or overnight. We'd seen other neighbors do it and it still left ample room for people driving on the street to get by. Well, one day shitty neighbor come up while my roommates and I are in the garage organizing some stuff and tells us that we can't park there overnight as it's against community rules. Before we had a chance to respond, he added, "And if you do it again, I will personally make sure you're towed." His first comment was pretty reasonable. We just moved in and didn't know that rule. But his second comment really just made him sound like an a-hole and wasn't necessary. One of my roommates simply responded that we didn't know as we just moved in and we wouldn't park there overnight anymore. Well, shitty neighbor, clearly trying to assert his dominance, responded with, "Good. You better not, because I'll be watching." Well, from then on we did follow those rules. If we parked in front of our garage during the day, we would make sure to move before we went to sleep. This worked out for a while until one faithful day. One of my roommates stopped by quickly after work to grab some dinner and clothes before heading to his girlfriend's. This was around 7 p.m., so he just parked up against the garage as it would be quicker than the parking spaces. Plus it was early enough that he didn't think he'd get towed. Around 8 p.m. he went to head out and his car was gone. Guess who was there though? Shitty neighbor standing right outside. Immediately he said to my roommates, "Told you you were going to get towed if you parked here again." Shitty neighbor and my roommate argued for a bit before my roommate came back inside and calls the car lot. Well, it ends up they're closed, so he'll have to get his car in the morning. The kicker? They're going to charge him an overnight fee. All in all, it comes out to $500, which isn't a small amount of money for us. This neighbor has been in a hole to us since we moved in, and even though it wasn't my car that was towed, I took this personally. To make sure we didn't get towed again, we decided to read the community rules, and lo and behold, we found out that the street in front of the garage is actually considered a fire lane and no one is supposed to park there at any point during the day. Between shitty neighbor treating us like crap and the fact that we could get him yelling at his wife every night, not a big detail to the story, but just wanted to say to add to my point that this guy just sucked, I start to plan my revenge. Since quarantine started, I've been able to work from home and my desk conveniently looks out onto the street between the houses. This means that I can clearly see shitty neighbor's garage. I start to take notice of when he parks his car out in front of his garage. For about 2 weeks I noticed that he would come home around 1 p.m. and leave again at 2 p.m. On the 3rd week I decided I would begin the revenge. On Monday, true to his schedule, he stopped by around 1. After about 10 minutes I gave the tow company a call and said that he was parked in the fire lane and if they could come and remove his car. 20 minutes later a tow truck rolled up, hooked his car up, and towed it off. About 15 minutes later shitty neighbor came out and I could hear him start to yell back into his house, presumably at his wife. He then left and didn't come back until later that evening after he'd gotten his car. Now it was funny to do this and I made sure to send snaps to my roommates who don't work from home, but I wasn't done yet. See, this jackass apparently didn't learn the first time because literally the next day he parks in front of his garage again. What do I do? Well, the exact same thing as the day before, of course. Again, shitty neighbor come out, realizes his car is gone, yells at his wife and then goes to get it. Now after this time he is a bit smarter and parks in an actual spot before going in to get his lunch or whatever it is he does there midday. He does this for about 2 weeks before he decides that it's okay to park in front of his garage again. Well, who is still sitting at their desk every day and notices this immediately? Well, me, of course. And being the concerned resident that I am, I immediately call the tow company and off his car goes again. And again this is met with yelling. I wish that this had a more satisfying ending, but after this third time I decided I would stop because I genuinely felt bad for his wife, who he seemed to do most of the yelling at as if it was her fault that he was a dumbass. What I can tell you is that it definitely cost him over $1,000. If he hadn't gotten my roommate's car towed, then we wouldn't have ever found that fun little rule. The best part was that a number of my neighbors would have their cars parked there at the same time and they'd never have their cars towed, which made it all the better when his was. We have had a number of other encounters that with him in the time since this happened, and I have another story that involves the actual HOA that I'll probably write later. That one is still ongoing though, so we'll see how it ends up. Next one is titled, Selfish Spouse Hit by Car, Ma. When I was 18, young and stupid, I met a guy that I married after only 3 months of dating. Let's call him Fred. Fred turned out to be one of the most violent people I had ever met, and I escaped the marriage with the clothes on my back and the air in my lungs. I won't bother you with the details because they don't apply much to this story. Before things fell apart, Fred decided we needed a new car. It was registered in his name, insured in his name, and the loan was in his name. My name did not appear on anything associated with the car's purchase. He handed me the payment book for this car, and I was dumb enough to keep up the payments for a car I had no legal right to. We were in the army at the time. After several months he had to go to a different station, but there were several months on my assignment until we could be together again. He took the car. I kept up with the payments. When the time for me to change stations arrived, we planned to spend the weekend in a hotel room together. It went badly, ending with him pulling a gun on me. I managed to persuade him to bring me back to the barracks, where I told my roommate what was happening. I gave her his picture and asked her to give it to the guys on guard duty and tell them what happened because he had a gun. Sure enough, he entered the barracks looking for me. The guys on guard duty called the MPs when he made a gesture that exposed the gun. He was led off in handcuffs. On my way home for leave I stopped by his parents' house to return all of the household goods that were his. This included the payment book for the car. Several days later I received the payment book in the mail, with a note that I should continue payments. I sent it to him with a note to pay it himself. A few days later I got the payment book with a more strongly worded note to continue payments. I returned it with a note that I would not pay, and if he sent it back to me again I would burn it. The fire was lovely. About 2 days after the ashes cooled I got a call from the bank, asking when they would get the next payment. I reminded them that everything about the car was in Fred's name. I planned to divorce him so I would no longer pay for the loan. I told them, oh, by the way, he plans to ship this car to his next station. Would you like his current address? The Grinch would have been proud of my evil grin. The next day a repo truck rolled up his driveway and towed the car. The story I got is that he ran after it, waiving 3 months of payment in cash. The repo guys kept it moving. Along with losing the car, he also lost a new set of radial tires, a CB setup, and some luggage that was still in the trunk. Next one is titled, Be Racist? Get Punched, Get Fired. This happened several years ago. But the guy, we shall call him Mick, and I were talking about old times and thought I'd share this. The event occurred at an establishment near a US military base. We were at a bar, it was just 4 of us. A black gentleman who shall be known as Taylor. Myself call me Luther, my friend Mick, and a racist called, let's go with, Bubba. We were sharing song requests. Bubba decided to start singing the N-word, but it's not even like he was saying the N-word along with the lyrics, he was just bobbing his head back and forth going and that, and this, and you, and everything blah blah. Obviously this was uncalled for and he was told to hush. Now Mick and I are both white. but Mick has a biracial son and daughter, and just recently his son was bullied for being black at school. So racism was a touchy subject for Mick. Taylor also jumped into the conversation, basically trying to explain to Bubba that this just ain't cool. I pull Bubba aside. I recognize it's the liquor talking, and we have a conversation on why the N-word is not okay. Especially in a taunting manner like he is using, and he should apologize, by everyone around, and we keep it moving. Apparently Bubba took this to mean we were violating his First Amendment rights. This enraged him even more, and he went on a speech about how if a black man can say the N-word, so should he, and this is America, and we should all be equal, etc. Well, Mick got into his face, and it was getting super heated. I don't think Bubba understood how much he was upsets Mick. I pulled Bubba aside and basically said he's touching a hot button because his biracial son was recently bullied for being black. At which point Bubba decided it would be an excellent idea to tell Mick he's a dirty race mixer and a traitor to his own kind. At this point Taylor and I had zero interest in stopping what came next. Before I move forward, Bubba is an overweight man in his 50s whose hobbies included drinking beer and eating steak. Mick was an active duty soldier whose hobbies included weightlifting and boxing. At no point was anyone in that establishment under the misguided belief that this fight would be even remotely close. However, at least in my mind I knew it'd be a short fight. Honestly, calling this as a fight is dishonest. Mick walked over to Bubba and said, "I'm only going to say this one, apologize and leave," to which Bubba stood up, proud, and say, "Duck you." I don't think Bubba saw the punch coming, but he sure did feel it. Bubba went straight down like a log. Bubba was dazed, and I'm sitting there wondering, am I going to watch a man get murdered or assaulted? As I sipped on my beer. Mick said some words, went to the bar, paid his tab, and left. Taylor paid his tab and left too. Bubba was still on the floor. He was awake, and there I think he was kinda shocked. I walk over to Bubba and ask him if he's okay. He asks if I can help him up, and I told him he got himself on the floor, he can find a way up off it. Bubba gets up, comes to the bar, and Bubba goes, "I'm report Mick to his command." I advise Bubba should think long and hard before reporting Mick to his command, cause it may not end up like he expects it to. Did I mention Bubba was a contractor on the local military base? He was a mechanic that worked on heavy equipment, a very replaceable position. Bubba asks me if I'd be his witness if he decided to report the incident. I told Bubba I'd be a witness and I'd tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, and I meant it. Well, a few days after the incident, I was also a contractor on the base. I get a call from the MPs asking me if I'd be willing to make a statement on what happened, and I said I would. I went down to the Provost Marshal office, and I made my state, and I mentioned everything that I've mentioned in this posting. Afterwards I called Mick and asked him what was going on his end. He said that Bubba had reported it and he's being investigated for assault. I asked Mick what he told the MPs, and he said he told them the truth. He punched the guy for being racist, insulting his family, and his son. He also said he reported it to his commander. Yes, Mick reported the fact that he punched Bubba to his commander. Mick also said that Taylor also made similar statements. I then get called in again, but this time to the base commander's office. As I'm waiting for my time, Taylor walks out. I asked Taylor what he said, and Taylor said, "Everything." I nodded. It was like we were in this together. I sit down with the commander, who is going over my statement. I really drove home the fact that Bubba was being very racist, that he was using racial slurs unapologetically despite being asked to stop, insulted Mick's family and called him a race traitor. Actually, very little was actually said about Mick punching Bubba. The commander asked me if I had anything else to add, and I said, "I'm impressed he only got punched once." A few days later I'm talking to Mick, and he tells me had ended up getting an Article 15 with a very light punishment, no reduction in pay or rank. The message he got was, take the Article 15, move forward, you'll be fine. Bubba, on the other hand, Bubba got barred from the base. As a result, the company he was working for fired him with cause since he couldn't get access to the base. This would mean no unemployment benefits for Bubba. Last one is titled, Halo 3 Memories. I don't remember exactly when this took place, but it was definitely before Halo Reach debuted, so Halo 3 multiplayer was still at its height. I would play every day after school and every weekend since it was the only game I had. So, I was pretty good for a 13-year-old at the time. I loaded up into a match of Big Team Slayer on Sand Trap. I always enjoyed getting the Banshee immediately after spawning in, but someone beat me to it, so I figured I'd get the next one, no big deal. My teammate quickly took out the enemy Banshee, so I played center of map waiting for it to respawn. It came back up, so I ran quick, only to have it blown up right in my face. I looked around expecting to fight, but it's the same teammate in the Scorpion that blew it up. I got onto him expecting an apology, but his response was, if I gave the Banshee to some crap squeaker, you'd just get it stolen, and I wouldn't get a perfection medal. No apology. No medal. He was 9/0 when it happened, so he was right about probably getting a perfection medal, and I was well aware I was a squeaker. But I was 7/1, so calling me crap was all it took to make me upset. I spent some time trying to damage his Scorpion, but he would just drive away. One time he even blew me up, which was perfect. I managed to grab another Banshee and proceeded to shoot his Scorpion with light guns over and over. You can see someone's shield break, and that would be my cue to circle around again. I did this 4 or 5 times, not killing him, but definitely damaging his Scorpion and making him upset. He was 13/0 at this point and was cussing me out over voice chat. I wasn't responding at all, just proceeding with the plan. Eventually he had enough and blew me up, Banshee and all. But that's exactly what I was waiting for. That was the second time he team killed me in the same match, so I got to kick him, 2 kills shy of his medal. I'm sure he got it another match, but I doubt he called his teammates crap when he was trying again. Thanks for listening.